Hi folks, it's Goblin140 and welcome back to my review of the Robots in Disguise build team. We are on a new week, meaning we are going to wrap this review up by looking at the combiner known only as Landfill. Now, I'm going to apologize because of this video because I originally planned to upload this video as a way to end the week out to wrap these guys up, but due to some, I don't know if you can call it technical issues, I couldn't upload the video and it took forever to upload, and so I just cancelled it. So I don't know if you can call that bad luck or divine intervention or just technical problems altogether, but let's just say I had problems with it, so I'm going to redo it again. But anyway, we're going to wrap these guys up by looking at the combiner Landfill. Now, Landfill as a character, sadly, Landfill gets no development. Landfill as a combiner, as a character, we don't know him all that well. His personality and his bio really aren't fleshed out that well. And that, I think, is a huge problem with the series, is that while the series did have its problems, my biggest problem was that the build team, with the exception of Wedge, none of them got any development, and none of them really were portrayed as any interesting characters, and that, I think, is a huge drawback. But I digress. Now, Landfill, as to what he did in the show, he first shows up in the episode Landfill, oddly enough, where the build team combine into Landfill and take on Megatron and Scourge. And later on in, what was it called, Skybite Saves the Day, where Skybite holds captive a huge building with so many people hostage, and he has to hold the tower for about an hour, I think it is. So the build team come along by the Landfill, and it's up to Landfill to clear the area to make sure that the building has an area to go in. And it looked like Landfill was doing a lot more damage to the city, but at the same time he was doing it for all the good. As to who voiced him, in English he was voiced by Michael Race, who played Wedge, and in Japanese, in Car Robots, he was, where he was known as Bill King, he was voiced by Yukiko Takami, who, strangely enough, played Wedge. So, Wedge's personality and persona kind of ran the show as Landfill. That's interesting, I guess, but it just makes the other characters seem a little bit useless. So, but sadly, that's all I can. Well, what are you gonna do? So really, that's all I can say regarding Landfill as a character. He doesn't really do a whole lot. He's just the combiner that shows up to save the day, and he doesn't really have a prominent role in the series. If you want to know more about him, I suggest you go look on the TF Wiki. But other than that, I really wish that he did a lot more. I wish that all these guys, with this exception, did a lot more than just be standard cardboard cutout background characters. But what are you going to do? So anyway, we are now going to look at Landfill. Now, Landfill is a weird combiner. In that, I said that before, the combiners have been a very unique subgroup in Transformers. And like I said, there's always 5 Transformers that combine into one Transformer. And often cases it's 6 that combine into one. Now, in series like RID, you had combiners like Rail Racer and Ruination, that was Rideco of Bruticus. And of course, Rail Racer was a 3 Transformer combiner, but RID wasn't the first series to start that trend. It was actually Beast Wars, funnily enough. It started with Tripredacus, they started with Tripredacus and Magnaboss, and they were very good. But Landfill, I think, is the first and only Transformer combiner that is made up of 4 Transformers. So you have Wedge, Hightower, Landfill, and Grimlock. You have 4 Transformers that make one giant Transformer. So that's kind of an interesting gimmick to go for, I think. So it's 4 combining into one. What are you going to do? Now, to transform these guys, of course, you want to make sure that all of them are in their respective alt modes, because we're going to get onto these guys later on. But first off, Wedge. Now, with Wedge's transformation into his build team body, you first have to take the arms apart, like that. And straighten them out, because these are going to act like shoulder pieces, I think you can call them. And straighten this bit out. And open up the chest. And of course, you'll reveal Landfill's head in there. And one thing I like about this head sculpt, we'll look at the head sculpt first of all, It's a nicely designed head, it's very well sculpted, and it has that perfect combiner look to it. I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but of course this figure has light piping. Of course, on the back you can see these two holes right there. So if you shine a powerful LED through the light, or if you shine a powerful light through the head, you would get the light coming out there. But yeah, this is pretty much Landfill's body, and of course to pull this piece out like that. This is going to come in later on, so put this guy aside for the moment. But yeah, this is pretty much Landfill's body. It's a nicely designed looking little feature. Now, onto the limbs themselves. First thing I'm going to do is just disconnect all of the loose pieces, because they're going to come in handy later on for when we move on to the combiner, because these are going to be the weapons for the guy. So, there we are. Now, with all these guys, with Hightower, Grimlock, and Heavy Load, each of these guys have a sort of interesting little thing hidden in their bodies. Now, these pieces, of course, they are the combiner parts. Whereas most combiners, you always use the head to activate as the shoulder or leg mechanisms. In this, it's a Triforce. So, first thing I'm going to do is just pull out these pieces right there. Same with this one. And of course, the interesting thing about these guys as well is that they have a sort of clicking look to them, so it will slot into place like that. Now, what you need to do, of course, is just take these guys and just slot them in, like that. The same with this one. And like I said before, this sort of acts as a sort of tri-fusion look to it, which is a very interesting thing for a combiner to do. And of course, it just looks really nice. So, now the interesting thing regarding this one combiner is you can have any of these three as the limbs. You can either have Hightower as the arms and these guys as the legs. You can have Heavy Load as the arms and these guys as the legs. But of course, it's a matter of personal opinion. So if you want to go with any of these, I'd recommend that you just go with the one that works. But I think really the one that works the most, of course, is Grimlock as the arms. Probably because these parts, his treads, they do look more like arms. Whereas Hightower and Heavy Load's arms, they're just his legs and they look really fat. But then again, these were his legs in Grimlock's robot mode anyway. So, now, to make sure these guys are out, you want to, of course, pull out the wheels, which of course will act as the feet for Landfill. There we go. And the thing about Landfill, especially for his articulation and movement, is he does have some articulation, but it's really, really stiff. So these, which are his knee joints, can move back and forth. And as you can hear that, there's a clicking mechanism to make sure that the movement for this figure is not so apparent. But anyway, put the legs down like that. And of course, rotate this part around to make sure that the body slots in. And of course, put that down and click that together. And pull out the arms all the way this time, because last time when I did this review it didn't turn out that well. Pull out the arms, and one thing you want to make sure as well is to make sure that this doesn't wobble around. You want to make sure that this piece slots into the hole in the body, so that it will stop wobbling around. There we are. And there we go. These pretty much act as the hands and the arms themselves. Watch this piece around. So there we go. And so far it's looking pretty good. To make sure that the body, of course, will fit, you want to make sure that there we are. These pieces are out, so they're just acting like, I guess you can call them shoulder pieces, I don't know. There we are. And that's it. And of course, so last but not least, put that guy down for a second. Here is Landfill's body, Wedge himself. Just attach him to this hole right here, which of course slots in perfectly. Hang on, I'm trying to do it. There we go, and here is Landfill. Here he is combined. Now, I do like this combiner a lot. The team, of course, does have its problems in the way they're designed. There are a few flaws. But really that can't say for the fact that when you combine these guys together, you get a really, really nice combiner. I like how well assembled this looks and how well put together it is. And not to mention it has some really good detail and really good colors as well. It has an interesting use of orange, yellow, red, and green, and it stands out quite well. Now, of course, Landfill, the set itself was used for the whole Universe Constructicon Devastator, which it actually looks fine. My only real complaint is they could have changed the head to make sure that people don't get confused thinking that this isn't Landfill. And of course, this was used for the yellowing Walmart 2003 release, which I guess is okay. But overall, I like this combiner a lot. This is a really, really cool combiner. I think that it has some interesting traits that a lot of other combiners don't. And it's the first, like I said, the first combiner to ever go for the 4-way transformation, and it works. It looks really, really cool. And the interesting thing about this combiner is, most combiners do often fall apart at first glance. This one's very solid. So no matter how many times you hold it, it won't fall apart unless you throw it against a wall, which I strongly wouldn't recommend you do. Now, I like this combiner and all, but something is a little bit wrong with this. I have a few problems with it in the arms. For some reason, the arms don't look like they're holding very well together. It looks like something is missing from this piece to make sure that the arms are joined to the body. But of course, there is a way to make sure that's corrected. You want to make sure the these are attached just to his chest, like so. So that's pretty good. Now, the interesting thing about this combiner as well is, of course, it has good articulation in its elbows, where these were the knees for Grimlock. And so yeah, this is pretty much a nice looking combiner. The legs are very stiff, and they would be, of course. But I like it a lot. This combiner is very, very good. Now, for the other pieces, of course, to make sure that he isn't incomplete, take off the flamethrower of Hightower, and of course, outshape that, and attach that. Of course, you'll see in the hands right there, you will see holes where weapons should go. So if you put that in there, and this piece, often this piece will fall off, but if you attach it right here, this can act as a sort of nice looking thingamabob. And of course you have Grimlock's scissor plow. Just attach that, there we go. And you want to make sure that this is attached to the top, which over time can fall off often. And of course, Heavy Load's big shield attached to one of his arms. And if it'll let me, wrong side. There we go. So here is Landfill armed to the teeth. And once again, I'm very impressed with how well made this combiner is. It's fantastic. I don't know why the Generations line doesn't take this one particular mold and use it for another combiner, just change the head sculpts, because this is actually a very good combiner, and the sad thing is it's so underrated. Whereas you have combiners like Rail Racer who get a lot of attention, Ruination who just sits there because he's a ridiculous Bruticus. Landfill just sticks out in that it's an original mold, along with Rail Racer. It's an original mold, it has a good use of colours, and I complained about the colours before. The colours are interesting, the look, of course, is very, very good, and this combiner just looks fantastic. I would strongly recommend it. If you want to get the whole set of the build team and combine this guy into Landfill, I'm just showing you, of course, what he looks like, and of course, if you want to see what these guys look like with these as the arms and this as the legs, go look images up on Google or Sabertron, because it's interesting, but at the same time, I've always preferred Grimlock being the arms. But that's just me. So anyway, last thoughts on this combiner and the team itself. The team, I really think the team should have done a lot more in the show, but the characters were somewhat interesting, if not flawed. The combiner is very, very interesting. Landfill sadly didn't get all that much development, but the combiner, Landfill as a combiner, is a fantastic concept used, put to right, and it's nice to see that the combiner concept was being thought of around the early 2000s, just as the RID line was just fading out. But I love this toy. It's really, really cool. So if you're going to get this guy, So I would strongly recommend you get all these guys together, combine them into this one badass character. This one badass combiner, of course. It looks fantastic. So anyway, this has been the Robots in Disguise build team. Of course, you had Wedge, Hightower, Heavy Load, and Grimlock ending up with Landfill. And I am Scorpion140. I hope you've enjoyed the series of the build team reviews I've been doing last week and beginning this week as well. I'm going to go on a little bit of a break for a while because I just want to get some stuff sorted out. Until then, I'll come up with a new toy review. But overall, I would strongly recommend you get this figure. It's really good. So anyway, this has been Robots in Disguise Landfill. I'm Scorpion140. Until then, folks, see you all next time.